Hey, welcome to Restoring Christine, the story about the rebuilding of the 1956 Chevrolet Bel Air right here in my garage. Stick around. All right, little update. Today was the day I got it back from the blasters and had to prime it to seal it. So I used an epoxy primer made by Axalta, Tough Coat 3.0 5240. It's an epoxy primer. You mix it 5-to-1 with a hardener. There's no reduction, but it is intended to be applied to bare metal. So that's what I had. I had bare metal, and I've primed the whole car. So even though I've got work to do on spots like this, I went ahead and I primed it anyway. So I primed over all the parts that I have to work with. I'll have to strip that off, at least at the splice point, you know, so when I make my repairs and do my welds. So anyway, it looks good, all considered. Interior of the trunk. Still got a lot of work to do, but at least I've got it sealed, so if it rains, just normal condensation and humidity, it'll be fine. Anyway, all right, good morning. First piece I'm going to start tackling on the Bel Air, Christine, is this small patch area in the lower side of the quarter panel of the front fender. Everything around it's pretty straight, pretty solid. So the edge on here, the lip is pretty tight. It's solid around the edge here. So I'm gonna do this little small patch. This is maybe 6 inches by about 3 inches, and I've got a sheet of 18 gauge metal that I'm gonna cut a few pieces out of. So this will be one piece, and I'm going to use Fitzy's cut and butt method if we can. If you haven't checked out his channel, it's really good. I'm going to use a lot of his principles on this car, and let's see how they come out. So this is the first one I'm going to tackle. I'm going to put the phone down and get after it and see what it looks like. All right, so the bottom of this fender, this bottom corner, there's a bracket behind it. It's a little bit of stiffness, something I haven't explored yet, but I know it's back there. So even though I'm going to make a patch that's bigger than this, I'm trying to get this out of my way so I can see what the understructure is like, so I don't bury any of this gnarliness. So that's why I cut this out completely. The patch will actually be a little bit bigger than this, and then I'll try to cut to those edges. And then also I am working with a new blade. I got a diamond blade for my cutoff wheel, and this works a hell of a lot better than those abrasive wheels that you get like from Harbor Freight, you know, 10 for $10 or 10 for $6, whatever it is, and the aggregate on it just beats you up. This was smooth, and it didn't throw a lot of material out. It was just the steel that came through as opposed to the blade consuming itself. Anyway, so let's get after this and see what we got. All right, I got the piece cut out. It came out pretty easily. I just pried it out with a screwdriver after I cut it with the blade. It had a little bit of, it was stuck in here. There might have been a spot weld or something, I'm not sure. But it shouldn't have been spot weld. It should have just been pinched on the backside, but I guess it was fused with the corrosion. And one of the things that I'm noticing is this is pretty solid back here. It does have a couple of holes, it's got a few pinholes over here, but that's not going to hurt anything. I mean, it's still pretty solid. It would take me more to cut this out and patch this. You got to cut back to solid metal. So I'm going to wait until after I get this fender off the car. I'm doing this now while it's on the car so that I keep the shape. But I'll wait until the fender's off the car, and when I'm patching other things, and I'll see if this needs any attention from the other side. So if it does, I'll fix it then. But the one thing that I am realizing right now is there's a lot of corrosion in here, and the one thing I just discovered that I do not have in my supply is the rust conversion spray. So I'm going to run to the auto parts store, go grab some, and spray that before I put a patch piece on it. So unfortunately, that's the way these things go, man. You get started, 15 minutes in, 15-20 minute trip to the parts store. So that's just the way it is. But once we get started, and once we start making some progress on the rest of this, let me zoom back. Yeah, once we start making progress on the whole of the car, I'm sure we'll move at a much quicker pace. I do have a plan. I walked through the whole car this morning, and I have a plan of attack for everything, and I'm planning on discussing that with each successive video that I do on this build. Anyway, so I'm heading off to the parts store. See you in a little bit. All right, I got the Loctite Extend Rust Neutralizer. Converts light rust to a paintable surface. I don't necessarily want to paint it, but I just want to stabilize it. That's for sure. So I've already grinded this a little bit, and I've wire wheeled it just enough. So surprisingly, this thing corroded on the surface. I'm puzzled as to why the pocket, why that's not eaten up. It just, duh, I have no idea. I can't explain it, but there it is. So let's start making a patch. All right, so there's a patch, and you can see the fender's got a curve in it. You know, so I've got to put that bend in it. I'll probably take it over. I got some oxygen and oxyacetylene bottles, so I'll probably use that to kind of start this shape, bend it a little bit. I don't think it has too much of a curve, if any, this direction. At least the small amount that it's got will probably hide under a tiny amount of filler. So I'm gonna go bend that, and let's see if we can't start fitting it up. All right, now I got my patch tack bolted in. It's fitted a little bit. It's tight where I wanted it, and it's loose where I didn't want it. So I've got a little bit of a gap here. Just had a little bit of trouble cutting. The fender well comes back here, and it kind of gets in the way back here, and I didn't really think it completely through. The piece that is back here that I cut out after I had the patch, so the last little strip is kind of like still tangled up in there. I'm hoping that once I remove the inner wheel well and remove the fender, I'll be able to get to that and clean that up on the back. But this, I'm going to clean this up a little bit and then continue spot welding all the way around, just going slowly, trying not to warp anything. I do benefit from the fact that I've got some stiffness along these two edges, but I definitely don't want to overly warp any of this. So I'll continue spot welding, and let's see where it goes. All right, so that's like the first or second pass of the welds. I grinded it down a little bit just to see what I've got, because I don't want to build up too much on top of the Gorilla. So I'll continue working it, continue adding filler. I still got some gap to close, but it's coming along. It's a slow process. It's hard for me to see this. This is only like, what, 8 inches off the floor, so it's hard to get onto the bottom with the fender on the car. But this looks pretty good. I'm pleased with this. All right, well, I think we're done. Really pleased with the right side and the top, but I had a little bit too much gap on this side, and it took too much heat to bridge the gaps that were in here, and so it kind of warped the metal a little bit, and it dives in a little bit and dives in a little bit here, so a little bit too much heat in here. If I could get to the back side of this fender, and I can only get to it about like to here, so I can't really get to this. If I could get to that, I'd be able to push that out and then smooth this out completely. So I'm going to leave this until after I pull the fender off, and once I pull the fender off, then we'll be able to fix that the rest of the way. But I mean, as far as like first serious day of fixing rust after after having it blasted. I'm pretty pleased with today's progress. I think I've been at this for maybe about 3 hours on this patch, thereabouts. And again, a lot of that's learning curve, you know, trying to figure out. I got a new machine, brand spanking new machine. I just picked it up last night, a Hobart Handler 125. I had the Harbor Freight titanium high frequency wire feed welder, and this thing was it did great up until it broke. It's got some tender circuitry on the inside, and I was practicing on a piece of sheet metal here, and as I was practicing on this, I pulled out the body hammer and I was tapping this, even though I was not connected to the work, but this machine was on, and it was exactly that far from here, and beating on the counter bounced that machine enough where something in the circuitry shorted. And if you know anything about electrical stuff, the secret to it running is keeping the smoke in. And I let the smoke out, and as soon as I let the smoke out, it doesn't work anymore. So there's no more smoke in the titanium. It is destined for the scrap pile, but I'll probably do a little project when I'm bored. I'll pull out that circuit board and see if I can't see if there's a capacitor that's popped or something that's on it that's obvious, and maybe I can save it, maybe I can't, I don't know. But for 180 bucks, it did what I needed it to do when I needed to do it. It's just now I'm ready to graduate up, and I got this Hobart, and so far today's work, this is the first I've ever used it, and I'm pretty pleased. So anyway, stay tuned for the next video on the rebuild of Christine. I'm really looking forward to getting this car back on the road. I miss it. I haven't driven it since 2016, so it's been 5 years, and I love this car. I just can't wait to get it back on the road. So here we go. Thanks for watching.